Happy holidays, Movieland, and welcome to today's very special episode, my first ever Christmas special. So I hope all of you are excited. I know I'm very excited, and we are going to be talking about a movie very special to my heart. Santa left me a nice little fun thing inside my stocking, and let's see what it is. If I can get it out. Yes, that's right. Today we are talking about one of my all-time favorite films ever, Santa's Sleigh, one of my ultimate guilty pleasures. So yes, come join me today. Set up a nice warm fire, get yourself a nice plate of cookies and possibly some milk, or maybe some kind of other beverage, maybe hot chocolate, I don't know. But either way, come sit down and join me today for a very special episode of Cinemacallie's Christmas Special. Alright, I hope you're nice and cozy and ready for a little Yuletide fear, because we're gonna... I'm so excited. I absolutely adore this movie. So this is Santa's Sleigh from 2005. A very particular movie in the sense that it is part of the Santa slasher genre. Now, of course, we've had a lot of these over the years, especially in recent years. A few notable ones that I really like are, of course, Christmas Evil and Silent Night, Deadly Night. But to me, this is king. Bill Goldberg is Evil Santa. I don't care what anyone says. He is amazing in this. But before I go into too much detail, if you are very interested in watching this movie, I would say click off the video now and go watch it, and then come back after you watch it. And because I, of course, am going to spoil it like I always do, but a quick spoiler-free review of this is, it is a very flawed movie. I will be straight up right off the bat. This is not a perfect movie, but there are a few scenes in here that are so good and so memorable that it is worth watching the film in its entirety. And also, it is only 78 minutes long. Come on, 78 minutes. That is amazing. I love when movies are that short, and they do a very good job with their length. Really, only one other movie only comes to mind when I think of ultra short movies, and that's Chopping Mall. I don't want to go too much into Chopping Mall, but yes, Chopping Mall is another super short horror movie that gets straight to the point and does what it needs to. And this film is very similar in that sense as well. So yes, if you are curious and love a good Christmas slasher that doesn't take itself seriously in the slightest, this is a straight up horror comedy, then I highly recommend at least giving it one watch, just to see if you like it. Alright, now with that being said, I think we are ready for the full-on review. So yes, right away, this movie starts incredibly. This has probably one of the best intros, I would argue, of any film. I'm not even kidding. It is so worth just even looking up that scene. Just look up the beginning of the movie. It is so worth watching. It's over the top. It's gory. There's a lot of one-liners. There's even some great cameos in here as well. It's so good. And then you get to see Bill Goldberg hamming it up. Now, of course, it is pretty well known from people who have watched this, and I'll even fully admit it as well, that the movie doesn't come, or the rest of it doesn't come any close to the first 5 minutes of this movie. The first 5 minutes is so good. And unfortunately, a lot of the movie doesn't carry that same over-the-top crazy tone. And it does kind of turn into a little bit of a boring movie here in places. Our main actors are really not that good. We have our... Let me see if I can find his name real quick. No, I cannot. But our main kid in this, who I'll show a quick clip of real quick, our main kid in this is not really that good. A lot of his acting is super, super flat, very awkward in places as well. And I've been trying to figure out, especially when I watched it this time, because I have watched this movie every year for a very long time. I adore this movie. Anyway, so on this rewatch, I wanted to see if maybe that was intentional, if they were trying to make our main kid weird and awkward, because he is 16 and there is a little bit of a love story in this with one of the main ladies from Lost, which I'll show her real quick. And so yeah, so we get to see her in this, which is funny because I've only ever seen her in this and Lost. So but our main kid is really not that good. He's very flat, has weird deliveries, and also super forgettable. And then we also have our main actress. She does a little bit better than he does, but not by much. You come here for Bill Goldberg, and you stay for Bill Goldberg. He is one. This is one of those roles that I've got to say is he was born to play this. He is so good in this. He brings such a fun energy, and he tries to be super intimidating, which he is at points. But there are some things that are so ridiculous in this that it's like, yeah, he looks like he'd be pretty fun to have a beer with. If I'm being honest, he does look like someone I'd have a beer with, and hopefully he won't kill me after that. But he's doing one-liners in this. There's even a point where he basically kills almost everyone in an entire strip club, and he's just going from scene to scene, just killing people, leaving trails of death and destruction in his wake. And one thing that I will say is not really done that well is before he links up with our main cast, when he's doing the whole lead up to that, because the story in this, real quick, is that the Santa in this is basically the Antichrist, and that he is the son of Satan, and he is just here to kill people. But then the main grandpa, so we have Grandpa, who's another one of our main actors, is an angel, and he places a bet with Santa that he needs to stop his killing and destruction if he loses curling. There's curling in this for whatever reason, and it's not really brought up too often except for those major plot points of why Santa was cursed for 1,000 years to deliver presents on Christmas Eve. And so it's not like, are they a big fan of curling? They're just like, no, let's just play curling. And I kind of love that they're not really mentioning anything about it. It's just more like, well, what's a funny sport that we can play that's in the cold and in snow that isn't like skiing or snowboarding or anything that's super intense? Because the budget in this is not that big, which I will get to the budget. But yeah, I thought that was really funny that it was about curling, and so he has to deliver presents. So for when the movie starts, this is his 1,000th Christmas. So now he gets to go do the murder that he wants to do on Christmas Eve instead of delivering presents. And so in the beginning of that, it's not really explained very well until we're about almost a half hour into the movie, which when you consider it's only 78 minutes long, is kind of a little bit of a problem, because there's a few scenes with Bill Goldberg, like the one where there's an old lady and she's just this mean old lady, which I do appreciate that the movie actually makes us kind of hate some of the characters that Santa ends up killing, which I think is really fun, because then it really adds, I felt it really adds to the comedy tone of the movie, because this is I think it's a really funny movie. There are some jokes that do fall very flat and are also very 2000s. I will be honest, this is a very 2000s movie. It was released in 2005, so there's a lot of that in here. There's a lot of also 2000s music in here as well, and I love every bit of it. And so just be warned, if that's not really your thing, there's a lot of that in here. So anyway, with that, so he kills the old lady, he runs her off the road, which is hilarious, because Santa actually doesn't have reindeer in this. He has an evil bison that rides his sleigh, which is a cool and unique thing. And it was also pretty clever, because once again, they didn't have a whole lot of budget in this, so they were trying to figure out ways to get around that. And nothing makes me happier with smaller budget movies when they get creative with the fact that they have a light budget. Now, it is also a problem because of the story, because like I said, Bill Goldberg is just kind of going from kill to kill to kill until he meets up with our main cast. So it just feels kind of like small vignettes of like, hey, like, I just try to imagine the writer's room and like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we had Santa go to a strip club and make a whole lot of jokes about White Christmas, stuffing stockings, you know, the whole innuendo thing, just innuendos everywhere. Wouldn't it be funny if we did that and then had him kill a bunch of people in a strip club and use a stripper pole to kill somebody? Would that be funny? And so it just kind of felt like that's as far as they go with it. Real quick, this movie was directed and written by David Steinman. And I'm not super familiar with any of his work outside of this, so I don't have the greatest idea of how his work normally goes. But I know as this one, I really feel like they had a good idea. They had a very good idea with this, but they didn't do much more with it. Like I said, you can really tell the budget is very held back in this. There's only a few locations, and the locations we do get are very simple. There isn't a whole lot going on. There's like one main street that we get that looks like it's just kind of your typical, like, oh, we need a main street set in our movie. This looks exactly like that, but all dolled up in Christmas stuff. So we do get that. There's a couple locations, and there isn't a whole lot going on. And you can also tell that, like, the kills were even kind of held back a bit, because there really isn't a whole lot of practical effects in this. There is some, but it's very basic stuff. It's just, like, obviously someone will get a candy cane in their eye, so you can just tell that they just cut half of it, put a little makeup on their eye, and then just had a few blood drops and stuff. So there wasn't anything, like, super crazy. There's no puppeteering. There's no animatronics. Everything was very simple. And I do like that in that sense a little bit, just because they really utilize Bill Goldberg's wrestling ability. So he has a lot of... Because he was a wrestler. I'm not super familiar with his wrestling stuff, but I know he was a wrestler. So you do get to see a lot of that kind of stuff, which I thought was kind of cool. And so this Santa isn't necessarily like a super over-the-top Jason or a Chucky or anything, but it's just, he's very straight to the point. He just kills and moves on to the next one, cracks a funny one-liner, and that's about it. Another thing I want to really point out in the cleverness of this film is there's a stop motion sequence. So when they explain the whole curling thing and how he was cursed for 1,000 years to deliver presents, we get a pretty cool little stop motion sequence that actually plays that out. I thought that was really cool. And it gives a nice break from kind of the blandness of the movie that we were experiencing up to this point, and they made it look like the Rankin and Bass specials. So like Rudolph or Santa's Coming to Town, you know, those kind of things, those old 60s stop motion Christmas specials. So they made it look like that, which was really cool. So I really wanted to praise the film and the fact that they did something like that and made something pretty unique. I really liked it. Honestly, now that I think about it, I don't think I really have much else to say. Like I said, this isn't a perfect movie. It's very far from perfect. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people were to review this as like a 4 or 5 out of 10 or a 2 stars out of 5 kind of deal. I'm not opposed to that. I get it. There is a lot of stuff that is a little rough, mainly with the story, and the acting in places is pretty bad. But there's just so many good things in this. Obviously, the intro is the best part of this movie by far. And then, of course, there's something to enjoy in everything when Bill Goldberg is on screen. He is hamming it up. He's doing some great kills. We're seeing wrestling ability. But then we get to have to sit with our main 2 kids, and they're just not very good. They're not super likable. They don't really have much of a personality. Grandpa was okay. He actually was kind of fun in places, but then when they kill him off by getting him running over by Santa's bison, they just run him over. That's the end of that. But then we're told he's an angel. And so if he's lived for over 1,000 years, how does he have a grandson, and where are his parents? None of that stuff's explained. So there's a lot of stuff like that that's left out, and the movie doesn't follow its rules very well, as either because there's a point where the kids are running from Santa in their high school, and just out of nowhere, Santa just shoots a fireball out of his mouth. And we never saw that up to this point at all. And so when you think about the beginning parts of the movie up to that point, where did that come from? How was he able to just shoot out a fireball out of nowhere? That's never explained or anything. It's like, well, I mean, I guess he is the son of Satan, so I suppose he has fire powers in some way. But then it's like, well, then why didn't he just shoot a fireball at our main kid 20 minutes ago and just moved on with his life and just started killing everybody? I don't know. So there's weird things like that. Also, the ending to this is pretty crazy as well, because our 2 kids, there's a big snowmobile chase and Santa's flying in the air, which also up to that point, we never actually see him flying. He's just driving his sleigh, and they're on the ground. Him and his bison and the sleigh are on the ground. We never actually see them flying up to this point. So it's like, again, if you wanted to kill Grandpa to get revenge on him, why didn't you just fly there in the beginning and just shoot a fireball at his house and call it a day? So there's weird things like that in this as well. But the main reason why I love this movie so much is it's one of those things that I really appreciate the fact that there was good ideas in this. There are some very good ideas in this movie, but they just needed to be fleshed out a little bit more. And you could also tell that the budget held this movie back quite a bit in places. But they did the best with what they had, and I really respect that. And this has just been something that I watch every year, no matter how I'm feeling or what I'm doing. I always try to fit this in every year. And I think you guys should too. It is worth giving a chance, in my opinion. And who knows, maybe you'll also have a new film in your yearly Christmas rotation. And with that, I'll see you guys on the next one. Happy holidays.